Hello folks, I'm John Myrie and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show we have reports and tips for you from Tim Anderson down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and then we talk summer fishing with Hayward Ace Fishing Guide Noah Glitto. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
The fishing opener has come and gone. If you fish from an old boat, from shore, or didn't go out at all, we can help. Hayward Power Sports has an awesome selection of new Lund boats built by fishermen for fishermen for the last 75 years, and no boat retains their value better. Or check out a Tracker, America's #1 selling aluminum fishing boat. Whatever brand you choose, they'll be powered by Mercury outboards, rigged and ready. Don't miss another day of fishing. See us at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in Northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray, bake down, draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service, the clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu. And while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom-cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward.
Today, anglers fish longer. Today, anglers fish harder. Today, anglers rely more than ever on their electronics. It all comes down to catching more fish, and today, anglers rely on Amped Outdoors lithium batteries, period. Visit ampedoutdoors.com today to power your outdoor experience.
We're recording this week down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and we've got the owner of Hayward Bait in here, Tim Anderson, and good to have you on here once in a while.
Well, hey, thanks for having me on, John. It's a joy to listen to the podcast and hear the different bites that are going on and conditions. And so I'm glad I could jump on for a few minutes here.
Thank you guys for sponsoring. But let's talk about the fishing out there. You know, we've had the cold fronts come through, kind of blew a lot of the fish out of the shallows. They were shallow, then they went out deeper. Right now, a lot of stuff's in the weeds, it seems like.
Yeah, you know, the fish, they're a little confused just as we are with the weather. But, you know, you get these cold nights dropping into 30 degrees. And, you know, coming out of opener, those water temps were getting close to that 60. You know, the male crappie, they were pushing in. I found some on some beds on some of our lakes around here. And then we got hit with all that rain and those cold fronts. And that pushed everything out a little bit. But I'm hearing that a lot of people are finding fish on the new weed growths.
Yeah, they're right over the top. I was out in the flowage yesterday as we're recording this, and we had crappies in toward later in the day bubbling on top of the water over the top of the weeds everywhere. So, and I think there was a bug hatch going on. I was seeing it on my depth finder, and there was a lot of stuff. And we're starting to see some dragonflies now, too, which are hellgrammites in the water.
Yep. You know, this warm up has got everything hatching and getting close to the point of spawning out there. You know, even your bluegills, I've been seeing them in the afternoons, you know, because coming out of those 30-degree nights, it seems like the afternoon I'm seeing a lot more activity than the morning time. You know, they're probably out a little deeper, but, you know, those bass, for the guys that are out there catching some largemouth, I know I was seeing them in all the way up to 6 inches of water. You know, you'd see their back just sticking out. And one of my buddies who was out topwater fishing the other day, running real shallow, and that's actually a really fun bite to get on, because when you can see their back sticking out, when you run that topwater, it'll make a big wake, that fish rushing over to your bait. And that, to me, that's an absolute riot to watch, you know?
Yeah, you know, everything. I mean, I'm going to talk about bass a little bit, but you mentioned on top watching that wake. I did that. I was out with with Pete Mena and Tex, so we were out on a lake up here. We just found some crappies, big crappies up on top of the weeds, and I throw in a little Zara spook puppy, the tiny one, and I was getting them chasing the topwater and whacking it like bass, big crappies. Everything will hit topwater at certain conditions, it seems like.
Oh, for sure. And it's hard for me. I mean, it's fun jigging and bouncing that jig on the bottom for those walleyes, but to watch the action of a bass, a pike, a muskie coming up on top and grabbing that, and especially when you're looking at 2 foot of water, it's hard to beat that kind of activity visually, you know?
Well, I think it was Al Lindner once said, to me, and maybe said it on the radio show, when he starts seeing dragonflies, he says the pop-arts come out for the smallmouth. And to me, that's an indicator. When you start seeing that, the top water action for smallmouth is pretty darn good. They're shallow. Oh,
big time, big time. And on the dragonflies, obviously the dragonflies are feeding on your mosquitoes. I really haven't even been hit with mosquitoes too bad yet. It's coming up. I don't mean to jinx us or anything like that, but I think here in the next couple days is when those mosquitoes are really going to start coming out, and that's kind of your food forage base for a lot of the bugs out there. And so I'd think, what's today? Today's Monday. I'd think by the end of this week, it's going to be hard not to catch a fish.
Yeah.
Truly.
Muskie season is open now, too, and I've actually seen some fish. I actually had people in my boat get them on bass lures, and I've seen some good pictures out there. It sounds like the action was decent for early in the year.
Yeah, I heard more than I'm used to hearing. Normally that first week or two of season, a lot of people are excited to get out there, but the activity is normally a little sluggish out there. But no, I've heard people moving them around, and even heard a couple people pull them up on a bluegill or a crappie that they'd had, and it grabbed onto that, and they got to watch that ride all the way to the edge of the boat until it let go. So they're out there for sure. Not going to be super aggressive right now, but they're moving around. They're working on feeding just the same as everything else is.
Pike fish has been really good too. I know a lot of the lakes I'm fishing on, and just a simple thing. We caught so many I couldn't even count that. I think on the Chippewa flowage here last week, and they were catching them all on beetle spins.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people in the shop over the last few days coming in and talking about the bite and hearing about what's going on. And it seems like the guys that are slinging that beetle spin around, they're catching a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, when we refer to beetle spins, the original bait had a little beetle tail body on it, but what most we refer to is you've got them here, the little individual clip-on spinners. You can put them on an 1/8 or a 1/4 ounce jig, and then you put like a 3-inch twister tail of white. I like white.
Yep. It depends on the watercolor or what I'm going to do. If I'm on that real nice clear water, I'm probably going to go something a little darker, more along the natural lines. But on some of the dark waters we have around here, moose, teal, even Nelson is borderline that. That white, that bright white, pink is a go-to color for myself. I have a hard time straying from the pink, but those standout colors in that dark water, they really do the trick.
And it's like a little bit about walleye fishing real quick, too. Walleye fishing, that has been up and down. I mean, I'm not getting a tremendous amount of good reports, but they're catching fish.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's part of that is these cold nights and then the warm afternoons, that makes them move all over the place. But that weed edge seems to be where they're really locating. Some of the guys I talked to this morning that were on the flowage, they said they started looking in that 15 to 20 foot for walleye, and they 1 or 2, but they said when they moved out to that 21, 22, 23 foot, they seem to be finding a lot more fish and the right size fish to throw in the frying pan too.
Yeah, in some lakes, though, there's still some fish in the weeds from what I'm hearing and seeing too.
No doubt about it. And the fish they're moving all over the place. Like I said, you get these cold mornings and they're pushed out, and then the day goes into 65, 70 degrees with the sun shining down. And by 8 o'clock at night, they're in a lot different location than they were. But that's part of the fun of fishing, is figuring out where they're at.
Supposed to be fun. Let's talk a little bit about the shop real quick down here. I know since you took over here, you've made a lot of changes and really improved a lot of different things.
Yeah, we've worked really hard on trying to adjust to what's out there, and our biggest thing is making sure it's as efficient and customer friendly as it can be for the customer and the employee. Our minnow tanks over there, we reestablished those and redid those and did bigger tanks and more tanks, so the visibility of what minnows are in there is much better and much easier. We moved all our reels onto a reel case, so you guys can come in and go through the 150 different models that are on there and see what's new, but we're always trying to do the best to bring something new into the store here, whether it's lures, a presentation, all the above, and hoping you guys like it and swing on through and check it out.
And as usual, just about everybody in here fishes too, so if you just want information to come in, you'll wind up finding something you want, but information is a great place, lake maps, everything.
Yep. Come on in, pick our brain. We hear a lot of different things on the different reports, and also a lot of the great guides in Hayward. They're coming in here in the mornings, and we're going to chat with those guys too on what bite is hot, what's moving, and so whether you're looking to go out on your own and adventure or link up with a fishing guide around the area, which we have plenty of great ones, swing on in, and we'd love to get you connected and get you pointed in the right direction.
Well, Tim, thank you greatly for coming on here. Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll be talking to Hayward Area Fishing Guide Noah Glitto, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop for the Hayward area's largest selection of rods, reels, lures, fishing electronics, boating supplies, and they've now expanded their selection of soft plastic bass and walleye baits. No matter what you're fishing for, at Hayward Bait and Bottle, you'll find everything you'll need for a successful season. And while you're there, in their bottle shop, you'll find a full selection of beer, wine, and liquor, too. And also don't forget, now they carry Shoremaster docks, lifts, and accessories at Hayward Bait and Bottle. There's no time like the present to explore Hayward, Wisconsin, one of the Midwest's most popular vacation destinations. With crystal clear lakes for water sports and fishing, miles of trails for riding snowmobiles, ATVs, cross-country skiing, hiking, and mountain biking, this area is buzzing with activity year-round. Combined with charming local shops and a variety of Northwoods dining options, Hayward is certain to offer both adventure and relaxation for everyone. Plan your trip today and find everything you need on the Hayward Area Chamber of Commerce website. From events and attractions to local dining, shopping, and lodging, visit haywardareachamber.com and start your next adventure now. Big fish stories come to life at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. The world's largest shrine to freshwater anglers boasts a 4.5-story tall walk-through muskie that's a half a city block long. It's like taking a peek into Granddad's old tackle box with thousands of mounted fish, antique outboard motors, and historical sport fishing artifacts. Stop in and take a chance on our 50-50 cash raffle. You could walk away with a pile of cash. See the big ones that didn't get away at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Highways 27 and B in Hayward. Open daily, including Sundays, through October 31st at 9:30 a.m.
Save on a new Can-Am ATV or side-by-side at Hayward Powersports. With summer coming, we're making incredible deals on all of the 2024 models and making space for the new 2025s. Remaining 2024 Can-Am side-by-sides offer rebates up to $3,500 or financing as low as 0.99% for 36 months. The Can-Am Defender is the perfect utility side-by-side that's extra tough on the worksite or for the projects around your property. Can-Am Maverick is the high-performance machine that delivers an unrivaled adrenaline surge. Or get the best of work and play with the ultimate crossover, the Can-Am Commander. Maybe you prefer a traditional Can-Am ATV. Pick up a remaining 2024 Can-Am Outlander today with up to $1,500 in rebates, or choose 0.99% financing for 36 months. Take home a Can-Am and make every hunt a success, every trail ride an excitement-filled adventure, and make light work of heavy-duty jobs. Come see Hayward Powersports today, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Offer subject to credit approval. See dealer for details.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors, and this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. For more information on lodging and vacationing here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Well, folks, one of the people I get on here from time to time is Hayward Area Fishing Guide Noah Glitto. Had a chance to talk to Noah the other night on the phone about fishing and some great tips from him. Noah, good to have you on the show here. We get you on here quite often.
Yeah, it's always good to be on the show and talk about some fishing.
You know, we're going to be looking at getting into the summer patterns before too long. Everything changes. I mean, sometimes people struggle to try to catch fish. And, you know, I keep telling people that, you know, you concentrate on the hours of the day. If you're after walleyes, for instance, concentrate on the best hours of the day and spend your time fishing panfish or fishing for bass. Bass fishing can be really good all summer long.
Certainly, bass fishing is always pretty consistent. You can always get on some fish, and there's always northerns around that'll bite and give you a fight. There's always fish that are catchable. Don't get too focused and tunnel visioned on just trying to catch walleyes.
No, you know, as far as fishing, once we start getting the bug hatches and everything else going on, what kind of tips could you give people as far as catching fish? I mean, it can get tough when we start having hellgrim mice, which are dragonflies, and we start having mayfly hatches and that stuff.
Those kind of things come and go, but the number one thing is be patient and downsize your lures. When we're fishing in bug hatches, these fish are honed in on eating them small bugs and stuff. Don't be scared to tie on a lighter jig head and use a smaller plastic or a smaller minnow. See if you can get these fish to bite.
Do you see a time when that happens? You know, there's certain times of the day it seems like you'll have windows open when it comes to summer fishing, and I see a lot of afternoon window where you can catch fish in the afternoon, not just the evening. But you know, I kind of relate it to what's happening down below in the bug hatches and stuff. The fish kind of turn on. You want to be where they're feeding at.
Yeah, certainly. I've noticed on some lakes it might even be almost around like 11:30. Sometimes there's about a 25-minute window where the fish just bite like crazy, and then they shut down again. So you got to kind of be patient and consistent. If you know you're in the right area where the fish are at, don't be scared to sit there and fish for them until they bite. You just got to wait for them to turn on.
You know, I've noticed that sometimes you can actually you'll see the bug hatch on your depth finder. The newer depth finders pick all that stuff up. You see that larva coming up off the bottom, and the fish feed on that stuff when it starts to come out of the bottom. If you see that bug hatch, I've actually seen on the sonar where you can see the bug hatch coming up, and you can see the active fish going back and forth through it, feeding on it.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, with the advanced sonar we've got, and not just the live sonar, but on your regular 2D imaging, you can see there's kind of a clutter on the bottom that indicates that the bugs are coming up off the muck layer there. And I've noticed, too, that the fish really will spice up for a little bit right when the bugs start to hatch. But then after a while, they've kind of had their meal and they kind of start to slow down. You know,
and I mentioned earlier, I said you find that window during the day. And there's always going to be, you know, a window sometime during the day. I find the afternoon seems to be the better when it comes to the summer. You get morning bite, too. But the afternoon, there's always seems to be a window. And then there's a window in the evening, especially for walleyes.
The morning bite seems like it's a pretty small window as well, but that afternoon, right as the sun's hitting the tops of the trees, is typically where I've had most of my success fishing for those walleyes.
You know, walleyes seem to be a primary target of a lot of people up here, and you know, I've had some pretty big name fishermen on the radio show over the years that have said, you know, concentrate on them when your odds are the best of catching them, and fish for other fish during those other times. And we do the Bassin Northland Bassin podcast, me and Ken Melinder, and you know, that's one of the things that gets overlooked up here a lot is the bass fish, and it's tremendous here in the Northland. And you got not just smallmouth but largemouth. You got some good fisheries almost every lake.
All the lakes around here have great bass fishing. We catch lots of fish in the 3, 4, even 5 pound range still. And in numbers too. I mean, it's something that is overlooked, and people do get, you know, too focused on fishing for the walleyes or fishing for muskies or fishing for, you know, they want their limited crappies. You know, if the day is tough and you're not able to get what you want, try milling around and looking for some other fish to catch and just make a good day on the water.
Let's talk about lures and presentations. I mean, you know, there's a whole lot of different lures out there nowadays, and you know, live bait is an option, but, you know, during the summer months, sometimes I find that you're better off to be throwing a lure when you got all those bug hatches and all that food in the lake. You're better off to be throwing some type of lure, whether it's a small spinner or like something like a beetle spin, or I've got a lot of fish on rattle traps in the summertime. I think you're looking for a bite that's more of a aggression bite. It's a trigger response rather than feeding, because, you know, the feeding window is pretty small.
Yeah, when those fish are feeding on the little bugs and the little minnows and stuff, it's good to downsize your lure and try to imitate that. But when the bug hatch is not going on and you're fishing and nothing's happening, it might be good to throw a reaction style bait where you're going to look for the fish to snap at and spin or lurch after your lure, and use some treble hooks, because when they swipe at it, they'll catch a hook.
What's some of your favorite reaction type baits for summer fishing?
I do pretty good on jig and wrap style baits. There's a lot of different styles of them out there. I also do pretty good with, I use about a 4-inch worm on a drop shot that I let it sink down past the fish, and then I jerk it back up above them, and I let it sink back down below them. And sometimes that up and down motion, they get their head going up and down, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, the heck with it. They just smash it.
Well, you mentioned the jig and wrap type baits. You got the jig and wraps. You've got shiver minnows, moonshine shiver minnows, I think it is. You got, the puppet minnows from Northland. And I see people try them and they give up on them real quick. I mean, it's like there's a way to work those and there's a way not to work them. And, what do you recommend people trying when it comes to fishing and being effective with that jigging wrap type lure?
With the jig and wrap, I see the number one issue is people don't let it hit the bottom and wait. A lot of times they're jerking the lure too much, or they're even jerking it too aggressively, where they're moving the lure way more than they need to be. Sometimes just a small little snap, only 1 or 2 feet is enough to make that lure do a good spin and come back down and hit the bottom, let it sit for a couple seconds, pop it up again, and you're looking to really get that fish to hone in on what just hit the mud down there. We're going to go inspect on what's in the mud now, and then when that lure pops up over their head, then they look up and then they chase it and smash it. That's what you're trying to do with a jig and wrap.
Well, and when you mentioned little short hops, it's amazing. I see people ripping on, and there's a time to rip on a jig and really get aggressive with it. But, I think a lot of people don't realize just how much that bait is moving down there, when you give it a big rip compared to just a small hop.
Yeah, I see it all the time where I talk to my clients about how to jig and moving the rod, and I look back and I see the guy doing a full arm swing, moving the rod way up in the air, and then I have to show him on the screen how much his lure is actually moving when he does that. With the live sonar, you can see the lure and you can see it, how much it moves when you move the rod, and it's really astonishing. You can see just how much that lure moves out of the strike zone for these fish when you swipe that rod way up in the air. And then if you do just a little pop with the wrist, you'll see that lure move just the right amount.
Well, folks, we need to take yet another break and hear from even more of the fine sponsors that bring this show to you every week. When we come back, we'll have the second part of that talk we had with fishing guide Noah Glitto. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey folks, come on over to Hayward Ace Hardware and check out the area's largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. We carry top brands like Browning and Sig Sauer, and we have a great selection of the newest and hard-to-find models. We've got a large selection of ammo with more coming in daily. If you need a scope, we carry great brands like Leupold, Hawk, and EOTech, and we'll even mount it and bore-sight it for you too. We even sell suppressors and silencers. And don't forget to check out our Guns of the Week. Huge discounts on a variety of pistols, rifles, and shotguns that change every week. So stop on in to Hayward Ace Hardware, your firearms superstore. Hayward Ace Hardware, Highway 63 North in Hayward, or give us a call at 715-634-8700.
Hayward Animal Hospital is a full-service medical and surgical hospital featuring on-site laboratory, digital and dental x-ray, in-house pharmacy, and online store. Dr. Ostrander has 40 years of experience dealing with illnesses, injuries, surgery, and dentistry. Hayward Animal Hospital offers urgent care appointments and emergency surgery daily. Please call early in the day for these appointments. They open at 8 a.m. Hayward Animal Hospital is located 1 mile east of Hayward on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
Hey folks, the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach on Highway K between the Big Lakes has groceries, ice, beer, liquor, and pop, and now has all new tackle and bait supplies. All current antiques and household items are now on sale and all must go to make room for the sport shop. That's at the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach between the Big Lakes.
If you'd like to have your time fishing be more enjoyable and productive, hiring a fishing guide can be a good investment.
Whether it's learning more about fish patterns throughout the year, learning how to use your depth finder to find the best spots and fish, learn how to use that GPS to get the most out of it, or learn better boat control. A day on the water with a guide can really help you to be a better angler, as well as make a day on the lake very enjoyable. To book a guide trip this year or get more information, you can find us on the internet at www.wiscnorthlandoutdoors.com, and then just click on Area Guides. Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And folks, we're going to jump right back into the second part of that talk we had with Noah Glitto. Well, you mentioned strike zone and strike window. That can get pretty short, especially when the fish are not actively, aggressively feeding. That strike window is very, very short, and it becomes an issue of trying to get the bait right in front of the fish.
Yeah, a lot of times the walleye fishing up here is spot on a spot on a spot. You got to have the perfect cast right in where they're at and get it to go right past them, and then maybe you got a chance. I've seen smallmouth swim from 25, 30, even 40 feet away to come after a lure. But them walleyes, sometimes they really only want to move 1 or 2 feet.
Well, even a bass, I've seen bass where you got to put it right on their snout for them to hit it too, because if you got forward-facing sonar, it becomes easier to do this, but you can do it with side imaging. Basically, you can find these areas that the fish are going to be on. Even if you don't see fish on your locator, if you spot or, put a GPS waypoint on that spot, and then you can sit there and back off and spot lock or anchor, and you're going to be putting your baits right into that area and kind of saturate it.
Yeah, be patient. The fish are in that area. They might not be right on that exact clump of weeds at that moment when you come through, but they will come through at some point. And if you're fishing it and you're patient, they will come through.
Well, no, I know there's a lot of good information there, and I think we're going to see a good fishing this year. Let's hope we get some stable weather patterns and stuff. And the bass fishing, like I mentioned earlier, the bass fishing is going to be good all summer long, and that's one of the things I'm going to try to concentrate a little bit more on this year, because that and northern pike. We didn't mention northern pike, but there are lakes up here that they actually want you to take some of the northerns out of, and there's so many pike out there, and it doesn't take a fancy boat equipment or anything else to catch them. I mean, I caught here over the last weekend, I don't know how many northern pike. I mean, we're in big numbers of northern pike we caught on just a stupid beetle spin.
Certainly, and northern pike are actually great table fare as well. You just have to learn how to clean them properly.
Well, yeah, and even the smaller ones, if there's a clean tail fillet on all of them. I mean, if you can't get the Y bones out completely, you've got the tail section. There's no bones in that, and it's a good size fillet on, say a 24-inch pike.
Right. There's lots of meat on those fish. I mean, and you can catch them in abundance. You keep a limit of pike, you got a decent amount of meat there, and actually some really high quality meat.
I know, Noah, you run a pretty big Lund boat like I do, and you do a lot of that stuff helping people out when it comes to rigging the boats and making sure the electronics is set up right for people that if they are rigging up with some of the newer gear and equipment out there.
Yeah, I've got my 20-foot Lund all rigged up with electronics and lithium batteries and a trolling motor, and I've got shallow water anchors and all the networking, all the gadgets and the gurus. I am familiar with the newer screens that are out there. If you guys have some newer screens that you're looking at buying and installing and looking at networking and adapters, and it gets to be overwhelming when you get all that stuff.
There's so much stuff out there now, but you can approach the fishing on a very high-tech level with all the new sonar and equipment and everything else, but you can also take it in a pretty basic mode and just go after it and go out and enjoy the day too.
And that's the beauty of the Northwoods that we have up here. You could just go out and have a fantastic day on the water, enjoy the scenery, catch a lot of fish, or you can take the approach of wanting the electronics and fishing aggressively and learning the lake and using electronics to catch more fish if you're focused on just catching fish. But up here in the Northwoods, we've got the beautiful scenery, we've got beautiful water, We've got all the animals and the wildlife around. I have a lot of times where we're catching tons and tons of fish, and the people are more focused on the eagles flying around.
Anyway, Noah, you want to give out some guide information and people looking to maybe contact you for guide service or information on your electronics or anything?
Sure. They can find me on my website, which is noahglittoguiding.com. Or you can give me a buzz anytime at my cell, which is 612-616-6287.
Well, thank you greatly for taking the time here, Noah.
Thanks, John.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, go to our website at wnoradio.com. From there, you can link to our podcast site, and the show is also on Spotify and Google Podcasts every week. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out of time, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you.
Listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications.